For everyone joining us, the BINALOT Talk is a weekly session we organize to discuss certain topics. It doesn't have to be very archaeological, but it is something that you can also relate to archaeology. So for today, I will introduce to you our speaker. Our speaker is Sig Bejar. He is a graduate student under the PhD Biology by Research Program of the Institute of Biology, University of the Philippines, Diliman. His work focuses on the ecology and taxonomy of Philippine tarsiers, which started back in 2015 when he was an undergraduate student under the supervision of the late Dr. Perry Ong. So everyone, let's all welcome Sig. So you can now share your screen.
Right. Thank you. So sharing my screen now. All right. So nakikita ba ng lahat? I think kita naman, no? All right. So first
Yes.
of all, I just want to say that I'm really happy to be here, to be invited here. So there has been already a lot of well-known researchers that have shared their research in this platform. So very grateful ako na na-invite ako dito. So for my presentation today, I'd like to share with you the work that we have been doing for tarsiers. Pero this also constitutes like a review of what has been done for Philippine tarsiers uh, since research has started basically. So tarsiers, actually, to be honest, they really don't need that much of an introduction because they're already really popular in the Philippines. So, but for these animals, they are considered as one of the most more popular icons in the country. So they are one of the three species of primates that are found in the Philippines. And what makes them unique is their huge eyes, yung kanilang well-developed ears. They are also small and they have long feet or yung tarsus nila. So that's actually yung parang distinguishing characteristics nila. And aside from that, they are also nocturnal. They have developed this extreme vertical clinging and leaping habit. And also among other primates, they are uh, purely carnivorous. So unique sila in those aspects. Now, what makes these tarsiers popular? Philippine tarsiers are very charismatic. So sabi nga ng iba, parang they're like forest teddy bears of some sort. So by law, they are regarded as flagship species and also specially protected faunal species. And as we probably know, they are really iconic both in our popular culture and ecotourism. So makikita natin sila, we can see them in like the 200 peso bill, and we can also see them being the face of ecotourism, especially in Bohol. But despite their popularity, so Philippine tarsiers, they have some mystery to them. So itong mystery na to, medyo may connection to sa mga misconceptions that surround them. So in this image, kung makikita nyo, it says, "Welcome to Philippine Tarsier Sanctuary in Bohol. Help preserve the world's smallest primate." So dito, makikita nyo agad na there are some information that's like being shared that's not necessarily true. And then a lot of people know that like tarsiers are only found in Bohol, and like they eat charcoal. So maraming information na may misconstrue dahil merong lack of education, lack of information sharing. Basically, kahit popular yung tarsiers natin, hindi pa rin natin sila ganun kakilala. And I think it has something to do with the relatively lack of research that's being done on them. So in 30 years, there's only been around 46 studies on Philippine tarsiers, and less than half of those studies are studies on wild populations, and most of them have focused on tarsiers in Bohol. So what's also interesting is that the sanctuaries have been established for more than 2 decades already, but they don't keep records of the tarsiers and their status throughout the years in the sanctuary. So basically, we're like left blind on what's happening with tarsiers there. And I think this really adds to the mystery of the Philippine tarsiers. So for the purpose of this presentation, I just want to share with you what are the knowns and unknowns about Philippine tarsiers, what's currently being done, and the the targets and priorities that we need to do as we move forward in research. So first, let's look into the past. So what are the knowns and unknowns about Philippine tarsiers? So when we try to find like the information that we know and the gaps in our knowledge, it's best to frame them in such a way that we can identify the important aspects that we don't know. So isa sa mga ways to like categorize yung mga knowns and unknowns natin is through these shortfalls. So in the study of biodiversity, we have what we call knowledge shortfalls. So they focus on the taxonomy of the species, distribution, population abundance, biotic interactions, abiotic tolerances, functional traits, and evolution. And these aspects are all interlinked and they are not mutually exclusive. And the most important one here is taxonomy. Because if we don't know what species we are studying, then it just follows that we also have no idea of their distribution, population abundance, evolution, etc. And lahat, almost all of the things that we are studying are connected with one another. So aside from this, meron pa tayong other shortfalls na related to conservation. But for the purpose of this review, we will be looking at these shortfalls muna. And so just to guide the discussion, maglalagay ko na lang sa gilid itong mga shortfalls. So for the case of the Philippine tarsiers, the taxonomy pa lang, they are already suffering from that shortfall. Because currently, there is only one recognized species, which is yung Carlitos selecta. But like a decade ago already, there has been a paper that identified evolutionarily significant units, which potentially constituted putative species already. So in that paper, they identified various conservation targets that included yung lineages na nakita nila, which separates the Bohol Summer Leyte population from the Dinagat Caraga population and the Mindanao population. So posible na those populations are unique and constitute different species. But at the same time, dahil kulang yung information about them, sinabi nila na why don't we just like conserve tarsiers in different islands, so sa Bohol, Summer Leyte, Dinagat, Mindanao, and then i-consider na rin natin yung dating taxonomy nila that recognizes yung different subspecies, which is yung Bohol subspecies, Summer Leyte, and then yung sa Mindanao. So it's very confusing. So from the get-go pa lang, meron na tayong shortfall sa taxonomy nila. So it wouldn't be surprising if doon sa other aspects ng knowledge about them, meron din tayong shortfalls. So in terms of evolution, I'm not really an expert on evolution, but in the phylogenetic sense, their place among primates is already well established. They are they have been determined to be much closer to anthropoids than to prosimians. So they are part of the haplorhynths and different from the strepsirrhynths. Pero with regards to their sort of ancestry, meron pa ring mga question marks dahil kulang yung knowledge natin on fossil records, for example, and we don't even know how tarsiers got to the Philippines in the first place. So I'll probably leave that to other researchers. Pero for evolution, relative to the other aspects, medyo mas hindi masyadong malalim yung gap dun sa knowledge. But in terms of population abundance, most of what we know about their population is based on Bohol. So there is a geographical bias. So all existing population estimates lahat galing sa Bohol. And if you notice dito sa screen, yung apat na estimates are from different sites and they use different methods. So the first one, estimated populations based on uh, their home ranges. The other two based on quadrat surveys, and the last one based on bioacoustics or acoustic calls. So very different methods. Basically, we can't even compare the density estimates within Bohol itself. And then wala tayong idea kung ano yung population abundance nila or the dynamics of the population in other islands. So that in itself is a problem. So, and then the next one for distribution, we already know that their extent of occurrence encompasses the greater Mindanao faunal region. So that includes the islands of Samar, Leyte, Dinagat, Siargao, Mindanao, Basilan. Pero we don't know what their area of occupancy is within their extent of occurrence. And these two like estimates are important if we want to properly conserve tarsiers and if we want to make like species distribution models, for example. So yung problem natin for their area of occupancy, we don't even know which smaller islands harbor Philippine tarsiers. We know they can be found in different forest formations, but we don't know exactly where. And we still have a little, not much, wait, in terms of disturbance gradients, hindi natin alam what uh, kinds of disturbance they can tolerate and how intense. And then also, may issues pa with like different elevations because not much, there hasn't been much monitoring efforts done in like higher elevation mountains for tertiaries there. So now, next for biotic interaction. We have an idea of their role in the ecosystem. Alam natin na they are funivorous, so they eat fauna, basically. They eat insects, small vertebrates, and like that. And they also have many predators. Like, for example, itong water monitor lizard. And they also use different species of trees. Pero but most of what we know about their role in the ecosystem is based from sparse records from old captive studies like dating back to 1939 and even from other tarsier species. So for example, yung GIF na pinapakita ko dito isn't really Philippine tarsier but a spectral tarsier. And there's even this post in Facebook that shared the Philippine tarsiers in Bohol, but they are showing spectral tarsiers in the video. So we know what their role is, but we don't know exactly who they interact with in the local setting. So what exactly do they eat? Who exactly eats them? Kasi we know that snakes eat them, pero wala tayong records. We don't even have records of domestic cats preying on tarsiers. And then what plants do they use? So do they just use native plants? Do they also use exotic plants when they sleep? So ang dami pang hindi alam. And within the populations mismo, how do tarsiers interact with one another? How do they compete in a sense? How do they compete with other faunivores, other insectivores? So there's still a lot of gaps in that regard. Next one, for abiotic tolerances. So we know that, but we actually have little idea on uh, how they can tolerate different kinds of environmental settings. So we only have like two papers dealing with their niche data based on experiments. So they identified that the tarsiers, the zone of thermal neutrality of tarsiers is between 32 to 35 degrees Celsius. In that they have relatively low metabolic rates at these thermal neutral zones. And when temperatures rise, yung metabolic rates nila also increase. So with this, they suggested that tarsiers might be vulnerable to climate change. But yung data natin on this kulang pa because these are only based on tarsiers from Bohol and Leyte. Hindi natin alam how other tarsiers in other areas adapt to their environment. And wala rin tayong published occurrence-derived niche data So I know some of my colleagues working on SDMs, for example. Pero other than them, wala pang naglalabas ng papers on this one. And then finally, on functional traits, which includes yung mga behaviors natin, different morphometric and behavioral traits in general. So our knowledge about this is based on a few studies. So actually, meron lang parang dalawang two seminal papers that researchers go to when they want to learn about Philippine tarsiers. So ito yung ranging paper ni Neri Arboleda on ranging patterns sa Bohol, and then the paper by D'Agosto on positional behavior and social organization on tarsiers in Leyte. And then the other information we know about their behavior is based on the captive research and programs in Bohol by Czech researchers like Wasikowski and Rehakova. So mostly doon lang. But in the wild, we know very few studies about them, or we have very few studies about them. So as for their traits, we know that they are capable of ultrasonic communication. They are sensitive to ultrasound, and they also have different acoustic calls. Pero but the information we know about these calls are only based on like a few populations. For ultrasound, we know the structure for the tarsiers in Surigao, but not in other populations. The same with acoustic walls in Bohol. And this in particular is important because the standard for knowing or for resolving the taxonomy of tarsiers is based on bioacoustics. So if we only know the calls of tarsiers in Bohol and we don't know the calls of the other tarsiers in the other islands, we won't be able to compare them. And we probably won't be able to resolve the taxonomy. And then we also have data on their morphometrics, but the problem is it comes from various sources and they are not standardized. So basically, we really can't compare the data that exists. Right. So from this, we can say that our knowledge about tarsiers is sparse and limited, and that from this information, we will we can say that we know enough to know what tarsiers are, but not enough to fully understand and protect them. Because if you want to protect tarsiers, we need to know like the specifics of different populations. But if all of our information is based on tarsiers in Bohol, then it's hard to apply that information if you want to protect, say, tarsiers in Mindanao. So there are still a lot of gaps that need to be addressed. Presently, what is currently being done? So current efforts based on recent publications and from personal communications, merong parang three main groups. So the continuing studies of the Czech researchers in Bohol, and then there are studies by Reef from UP Mindanao. So they have been studying and monitoring tarsiers in Biliran, Leyte, and Mindanao. And then there's our work. So for this section, I'll be focusing on what we have been doing. All right. So recently, meron kaming paper na has just been accepted this month actually for publication, and this focused on the positional behavior and social organization of tarsiers. So here, we found out that the tarsiers can sleep from ground level to heights greater than 8 meters. So bakit important ito? Kasi tarsiers, we know they, based on like past literature, we know that they only sleep at heights below 5 meters. So parang medyo, although arboreal sila, medyo ground level nakikita sila. So it's not surprising that a lot of people encounter tarsiers. But tarsiers at uh, also sleep in tall trees, for example. So lumalaki yung parang lumalaki yung parang stratification na pwede nilang puntahan. And it makes parang it's it says a lot about how tarsiers can adapt to different kinds of habitats. And then the other thing that we discovered is that tarsiers are not as solitary as we think they are. So based on what we know, laging mag-isa yung mga tarsiers, at least in the wild. Makikita lang natin sila mostly in pairs, so mother-offspring pairs, but never in groups of 3, 4. And in the population that we are monitoring in a forest fragment, we found that tarsiers sleep in groups of 4. Tapos, and magkakasama uh, yung presumed parents and their presumed offspring. So, merong like gregariousness involved na supposedly dapat wala. And this makes it interesting kasi ibig sabihin, tarsiers are able to like be flexible in what they do. Pero but this information is based only on our site in a forest fragment. So hindi natin alam if they also do this in other habitats. And in their sleeping sites, they only share their sleeping sites with their group members, but not with other tarsiers. So ito very interesting lang because we think that looking into the sleeping sites and sleeping areas of tarsiers will be important if in ecological studies. So ito yung parang isa sa mga things na dapat madagdag in future studies. And then also, in terms of their ranging patterns, ang alam natin from Bohol is that their ranges don't overlap. So ito yung naging basis for saying that tarsiers are territorial, for saying that for basically estimating their population there in Bohol. But we found out that tarsiers still require large areas even in small fragments. So itong fragment na to, parang 50 hectares to, pero yung range requirements nila umaabot pa rin ng 8 to 9 hectares. So sobrang laki nun. And then males, so yung mga dashed lines and yung mga polygon na may dashed and dotted na marks, yung ranges ng mga males, they overlap. So posibleng hindi sila as territorial as we think they are, or posibleng may ibang adjustment silang ginagawa to maintain the ranges. Kasi itong mga shaded areas na yan, yun naman yung parang core areas nila. And kung makikita nyo, hindi sila nag-overlap. So, ito yung medyo interesting dito kasi merong ibang dynamics na nangyayari dito sa ibang habitat na to na hindi natin alam for other populations. And then another study that we did with our colleagues from UP Mindanao. So we have been setting up camera traps in different habitat types. So camera traps, helpful sila to study yung mga shy na species natin, yung mga cryptic species natin. And we found out that tarsiers react to camera traps. So kung makikita nyo sa mga videos na to, tumitingin sila doon sa camera trap straight head. Naku-curious sila, may fixation, may attraction na nangyayari. So, this is important kasi it can affect our occupancy estimates if we try to use camera traps in studying their populations. So, just something na parang bago na we need to account for. And hindi rin na, and actually, hindi pa to na record in any other nocturnal primates. So, very interesting na response. And then finally, we have been trying to gather information from social media. So a colleague of mine from our lab also. So basically, dahil konti lang yung information about tarsiers, parang kahit anong information na makuha natin will actually be helpful to understand more about them. And the information that we get from social media is really helping us to know saan pa makikita yung mga tarsiers, ano yung mga parang ano pa, basically ano yung ecology and behavior nila. So for example, among the posts meron tayong potential predation by a domestic cat dun sa lower left na figure, ay na photo. And then merong report na namatay yung tarsier sa forest fire dun sa upper left na photo. And then dun sa upper right, mukhang, well, potential roadkill naman kasi nakita yung tarsier sa road. So, very interesting siya kasi hindi pa ito record anywhere else. There. And then, ayun. So, for this, so now that you know parang what we have been doing, and actually from this, we now have like a sense of how to study tarsiers. And we are starting to learn that tarsiers possess flexible behaviors that allow them to thrive in different habitats. So it's sorry. So it's actually really important because this generates a lot more questions for us. And it makes everything much more interesting. Ang dami pa nating pwedeng aralin. Now, how do we move forward from this? Basically, we need to prioritize, collaborate, innovate. So, ang daming pwedeng aralin, pero we need to know what we need to study first. And if we want to study them now, kailangan natin, we need to form networks with other researchers to upscale our data collection. And we also need to innovate kasi ang dami nating tools ngayon na pwedeng gamitin for this end. Now, one of our main priorities is to uh, resolve their taxonomy, basically. So ito yung overarching shortfall that we need to address. And then the next one, kasi important na malaman sila itong kung different species ba sila because species is the basic unit of conservation. And we need information about their morphometrics, bioacoustics, genetics, and behavior. And the next one is we need to collect more data. Basically, that's it. So we need robust amounts of data and we need them to be comparable. Kasi conservation is a race against time. Kung if we follow the conventional route, baka di tayo makahabol sa threats na in-experience ng mga tarsiers. That's why it's important to collaborate, to network, and to make use of citizen science kasi ang daming tao na pwedeng makatulong sa atin. And also, we need to make use of technology. So there's a lot of new technology that can be applied that makes collection much easier, like automated tracking. Ito sa figure, merong automated recording of acoustic calls. And then for our end, we have been trying to develop sensors for this end. And then gusto ko lang i-add na we need to rediscover the identity of tarsiers. So how Filipino are Philippine tarsiers? Dahil sa ngayon, we don't know what their roots are. Hindi natin alam yung indigenous links nila. We don't know their indigenous names. We don't know if may folklore ba yung tarsiers. Basically, alam lang natin na they are icons of ecotourism. But how are they really connected to us? So it's a question that we need to answer. And last one,
Wait, I think na-log out siya.
Na-cut daw si Sig.
Okay, sige. Hintayin natin siyang bumalik.
Yeah, baka mahina net niya. Na-cut off daw siya.
So while waiting for Sig, for later's Q&A, please send your questions in the chat. You can direct it later to the speaker or to me. So yun, wala pa si Sig.
Sabi nga, last 2 slides na lang daw.
Sige lang, willing to wait. May time pa naman. Hi, Sig. Are you back already? Hi, Sig. Nakamute ka pala.
Hello, sorry. I got cut off. Pero anyway, last 2 slides naman na ata yun. So, balikan ko lang yung previous slide ko, which is, which is like asking the question how Filipino or Philippine tarsiers. So, medyo, uh, I just put this out there kasi ang dami pang kailangang aralin with regards to their ethnography, their links with Filipinos, basically. Their relationship with IPs and all of those. And then finally, yung sa conservation, kung sa lab namin, we're trying to answer a simple question. Are we succeeding in conserving our biodiversity? So gagamitin ko lang to basically ask then if we are succeeding in conserving Philippine tarsiers. Because as it is, hindi talaga natin alam if we are doing if our efforts to conserve them is working or if there are actually efforts to conserve them kasi in the first place hindi tayo sure kung ano ba yung priority ng sanctuaries natin. So one of my colleagues actually we tried to like a surface level ano lang check kung ano ba yung nangyayari doon sa mga sanctuaries, conservation areas, and apparently it's parang hindi talaga siya geared towards protecting our tarsiers. So we don't know if these sanctuaries can be considered effective tools in conserving tarsiers. So if that's the case, edi kailangan pa natin mag-develop ng uh, better plans, better frameworks to conserve our tarsiers. So just to end, I'd like to end with this quote na lang. So in the end, we will conserve only what we love. We will love only what we understand, and we will understand only what we are taught. So if we want to really protect and conserve our Philippine tarsiers, it boils down to really knowing, uh, to really getting to know more about them, and in the process, like uncover yung mga mysteries behind them. So That's all for my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sig. So for our question and answer, you may raise your hand and then you can say your question, or you can send your question through our chat, either directly to our speaker or to me. And for our attendees here in the Long Acre Room, just approach me for your questions. Okay, any questions, everyone? So Juan actually has a question in the chat. Oh, he sent it to me. So he's asking about the current status of tarsier population in Samar, and he is asking what is the focus of your PhD. And another question is if there's any evidence of tertiary consumption.
All right. Thank you for that question. So sorry, medyo maingay lang dito.
Okay.
Very
Yeah.
unfortunate yung circumstance, pero I'm trying my best naman. And I'd love to share more about my work. Kung interested kayo, just contact me through my email or my socials. Anyway, so to answer that question, yung conservation status ng tarsiers currently near threatened sila. So that technically applies to all populations in the Philippines. Kahit na iba-iba supposedly yung threats na na-experience nila in different islands. So for Samar, you don't know if the population there is declining. We're just assuming it is because the uh, yung mga threats na experience nila doon. And then for my PhD, I'm trying to actually resolve the taxonomy of the tarsiers para masimulan natin yung conservation work. And then yung sa ecology naman nila, yun, we're trying to develop tools to better collect data about them. And then, sorry, what was the last question again?
Regarding kung may record ng consumption ng tarsier.
So far, wala. Wala pang record ng consumption. So yun din, hindi natin alam kung ano ba yung relationship ng tarsiers with yung mga people natin. Hindi natin alam for different reasons. Sorry pala, medyo sudden, pero final call na daw nung plane. Is it okay if we gather na lang yung questions and then send them to me by email, or we can set up another meeting for the question and answer?
I think pwede naman namin i-collate yung questions. So, everyone who has questions, please send it through chat. And then we
Okay.
will collate it and then send it to you via email.
Alright.
Yeah.
Pasensya na talaga, pasensya na.
No, it's okay, it's okay.
No
You know,
worries,
Pero,
Sig. It's
ayun,
alright.
again,
Yeah.
very thankful ako na na-invite ako. And
Thank you
hopefully,
din.
I get another chance to share.
No, it's okay. Yeah. I mean, next time when you're available for in person, we can have this kind of discussion again.
Alright.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Sig. Thank you. And take care. So thank you on behalf of OPSI.
Okay.